Welcome to Bolsa Chica Wetlands. Bolsa Chica Ecological Reserve is 1,300 acres of coastal habitat surrounding a saltwater estuary. During our tour, there are some rules we need to remember to keep the wetlands safe. No dogs, no bikes, no drones, no take. That includes even DNA swabs. This is a no-take zone, and stay on the path. The temperature was in the mid-70s when we started our hike around 12 p.m. From the parking lot, we got about a quarter of the distance down the path before we turned around. It was incredible. As we look over the wetlands, we can see unique vegetation and acres of water. Saltwater marshes are rare across the earth, and the vegetation here has very special adaptations. Underneath this water are layers of old plants, hidden where oxygen cannot reach them. This locks their carbon away from our atmosphere, sinking it deep into the earth. Additionally, this being a salt marsh encourages special adaptations in the plant life that grows here. Salt is toxic in too high of quantities for plants, and so some species, like the pickleweed, will push their salt to an outer branch until it withers and dies. It then grows a new branch. This cycle takes carbon constantly, as it is the building block for the tissues of the plant. As carbon clouds our atmosphere and contributes to climate change, we need to find ways to pull it out of the atmosphere and keep it out. How did our planet hide all this carbon in the first place? It's not like we're adding new carbon whenever we burn fossil fuels, we're simply pulling out what was already there. This brings us to carbon sinks. These are the things that sequester carbon from the atmosphere. And while the first thing you may think of are trees, the ocean plays a huge role in carbon sequestration. So do estuaries. Peat bogs make up only 3% of the planet's surface, yet sequester 30% of its carbon beneath their soil. There were so many tiny topsmelt on both sides of the bridge as we walked, and our guide informed us that they make up more biomass than any other animal here at Bolsa Chica. Then we saw something truly special. Carly spotted a baby round ray out in the water. We watched it swim along the bottom of the bay for a while, and the topsmelt kept far away from the baby. It was only about a foot in diameter, probably closer to 8 inches. We watched it until we couldn't see it anymore. The wetland does more than buffer carbon. Homes bordering the wetlands, homes that are little more than dots from where we stand on our path, have foundations that, due to oil drilling nearby, have sunk below sea level. Without the wetlands here regulating the tides, these people would lose their homes. The wetlands themselves are also an important home. The eelgrass covering over 100 acres of the wetland is an important spawning ground for many species, like these topsmelt and this baby ray. Another unique plant to the wetlands is cordgrass. These plants are hollow in the center so that oxygen can reach the roots under the water. Some birds have taken advantage of this. Ridgway's rail use the cordgrass to build floating nests that rise and fall with the tide. Our guide told us that green sea turtles also come here to feed on the eelgrass. Over 200 species of birds use the wetlands to nest or feed, and there are different birds here in the summer than in the winter. We saw a blue heron and a kingfisher at the same time. You can see both catch fish within seconds of each other. Below us, we could see hundreds of bivalve shells. Our guide told us that these animals were a major food source of the birds, and were on the pillars of the bridge we walked on and under the sand. We saw 3 or 4 crumb of bread sponge while on the bridge, and they looked like sourdough bread loaves, but very yellow and almost scaly. These are not native, but also not threatening the native species. They're around 8 inches, and further on down the path, across the water, we could see some birds with tails pointing straight up. These were ruddy ducks. There were dozens of them, maybe 40, the first round of northern birds here for the winter. Here's where we reached the island the snowy plover used to nest. The least tern and the snowy plover both use this habitat to build their nests. These birds are disappearing, and the places where they raise their young are precious for their survival. The sticks and debris that wash under the tide line are known as the wrack. This debris traps small invertebrates, providing a vital source of food for the snowy plover. In the summer, you can see volunteers placing anti-predator cages over the plovers' nests. Plovers prefer flat sand, where they can all see each other, and an opportune area for this has been enclosed by a fence in Bolsa Chica to keep predators and humans away. This is especially important because they build their nests in depressions in the sand, and the camouflaged eggs can be difficult to see and easily disturbed. Volunteers also work to keep the sandy bank clear of invasive plants and too high shrubbery, so the plovers feel comfortable building a home here each year. A female can raise 1 to 3 clutches in a single season. We saw a turkey vulture swoop down above our heads, and it circled a few times before diving down once and then coming back up. It flew off into the distance. We continued on the path, and our guide stopped us and pointed to a shoreline where there were several small moving mud balls. These tiny balls, upon closer inspection under our binoculars, were actually horn snails. We could not get closer because of the path, but through the binoculars, we could see their long spiral shells where they crawled through the mud. In the few hours we were there, we witnessed a group of people run off the path to splash in the estuary waters, as well as a bike. People neglecting the rules because they think they are careful At another point, we stopped again and looked down to a beach where the entire sand seemed to shift every few seconds. Through the binoculars, we could see little invertebrates darting from their burrows. Fiddler crabs, with different sized fiddles, dotted the shoreline. They were almost the color of the clay and silt around them, and never went too far from the little holes they called homes. We saw a blue heron fishing over the water off the shore nearby. We witnessed as cat and each a topsmelt, holding it in its beak before tilting its head back to toss it down. We watched a kingfisher dive and catch something, then fly away. We watched a marbled godwit swimming in the water, and then several more landed nearby in the water next to it. Out on a peninsula across the water, a group of brownish gulls were roosting. Next to them was a few American white pelicans, and then 2 California brown pelicans landed next to them as well. We discussed some plant life on the hike back, and then we went across the bridge to examine water samples at the visitor center. This spring, we are expecting a king tide, a spring tide that is unusually strong and high. This will rise the tide on the coast by several feet, and the water here in the wetlands by at least a foot. While some plants are adapted to small changes in the height of the water, as climate change creates more drastic changes, problems arise. Each species of flora here is adapted to the distance from the water and the amount of time and saturations it gets from the water. Sudden rises in sea level, like with the king tide coming, can be damaging. The idea that nature is best untouched by man is a Western one. However, indigenous practices follow concepts of humans working in tandem with nature, actively nurturing plants and animals to replenish what we take. This concept of stewardship instead of distance is a new one, but has shown incredible promise here in Bolsa Chica wetlands. One group that helps with stewardship is Amigos de Bolsa Chica, who host Flow Fridays every week from 9:30 to 1:30 p.m. FLOW stands for Follow and Learn About the Ocean and Wetland. Citizen scientists can participate in plankton collection and monitoring, as well as testing for water quality standards like temperature, salinity, nutrients like phosphorus and compounds in the nitrogen cycle, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, and pH. We can use testing kits that are purchasable for home aquariums to see how the water is behaving on a given Friday, and by using microscopes and marking down if we see a species within a droplet of water, we can create data to monitor populations of phytoplankton. By comparing presence-absence data for different microbes to different measurements of water quality over time, we might be able to understand how these microbes influence water quality and how water quality influences microbes. Maybe we can eventually learn to predict and prevent catastrophic algal blooms caused by these microbes before they happen. This place is a sanctuary for birds and marine life, and you can help protect it. If you live in Huntington Beach or nearby, you can participate in the Flow Citizen Science program on Fridays and collect data to monitor for harmful algal blooms and the health of the wetlands. When you visit these critical habitats, be mindful of the rules, even if you don't understand them. Often you can do more damage than you are aware, even when you are trying to help. You can donate to conservancies like Amigos de Bolsa Chica, and you can participate in legislation or vote for ecological protection.